Hey everybody, welcome back to Making It Simple. Great to be with you as always. Hope you're having a beautiful day. So we left off in this lesson that we're calling Stop, Look, and Listen. Take it from Hebrews chapter 12 as we're looking at what it means to be surrounded by this cloud of witnesses. Again, oftentimes someone may see that as where we're drawing from, but actually that's not the case. Actually, that is the observance of me, you. And so we left off on our last lesson talking about, is there anything, and this is an examination time, is there anything, and this is where stop, look, and listen comes in, is there anything in my life that is preventing anyone from seeing Jesus in me? Why is that important? We're not talking about perfection. We're not talking about piety or any kind. No. We're talking about the reflection of his character, of how he directed us to represent, because we are the image of God, right? And so Jesus told the disciples, how you treat each other is how people see me. That's how they'll know that you're mine. Again, we're not talking about wearing the t-shirt or the hat. We're not talking about getting a tattoo. We're not going down any of those roads. We're talking about you. How do people see you? And that's exactly what the writer is pointing us to here. So if we stop, and I mean literally take the time to consider, literally look at our life. If we look and listen for the answer, then what we find is the continual theme through all of this goes back to what the writer gives us here, keeping your eyes on Jesus. Well, Pastor, I mean, what does that mean? How does that apply in my life? Well, it goes back to what I continually talk about all the time, relationship. Do you know him? You see, friends, we are living in such a time of overwhelming amounts of information. That can be a good thing. That can be a very, very confusing thing. Because with overwhelming amounts of information, in between all of that information, some of it is not true. Others are expounded upon far too much. And we find pretty much everything in between. What we don't find is simple. Because some people have concluded that simple is not enough. That simple has to have some extra added components. That the really, really rich and the really good vanilla bean ice cream that is made to perfection has to have some chocolate syrup. That's not to say that that is not good. But that is to say that I have to add something to it. Information is much the same way. One of the things that I've noticed in ministry that seems to be a growing trend right now is shock value ministry. Okay, back in the 80s, 90s, whatever it was, there was a radio guy named Howard Stern. I guess he's still around. He's a vulgar, vile person, and I don't say that to be critical. That's just factual. But he gained fame by being what they call a shock jock, meaning that he would say stuff on the radio that nobody else would say. And so people would tune in to say, how listen, how far will this guy go? How close to the edge will he get before he gets a FCC fine or whatever? And ultimately he crossed those lines to the point to where he had to be put on satellite radio, or at least that was the articles that were read. Shock value preaching is not a whole lot different now. We see everybody trying to scare everybody, or they're talking about everything under the sun. They're trying to put a little bit of a spiritual tone to it to kind of take away from the fact that what you're talking about is not appropriate. Not in the pulpit and not in proper conversation amongst believers. Does life happen? Absolutely. Do we all have questions? Do we all have things that we struggle with? Yes. But does that belong in the pulpit as we're trying to draw someone closer to Christ? No. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because when we're not keeping our eyes on Jesus, okay, we're not learning who he is. We're not. Okay? Jesus did absolutely not, in any of the teachings that we are privy to, and that's all we can go on, he didn't teach about what happens in the marital bedroom. He didn't tell you about, this, that, and all the other stuff that's out there right now that's floating all around. And he didn't point his fingers and scream at everybody and damn everybody and tell everybody they were going to hell. And if you didn't have this kind of version of the Bible, and if you didn't have this, friends, there was someone this past week that publicly said from their pulpit that Jesus had a King James Bible. I mean, come on. Let's get real, okay? When we keep our eyes on Jesus, it forces us to a degree to learn, who is he? We're not talking about a pacifist and the guy at the beach selling towels and T-shirts and hey, everything's cool. No, there were consequences, and he explained those beautifully, as a good parent does. But the most important part of our run, as we're looking in this verse from Hebrews, run the race well, run it with endurance. The most important part of the run, was oftentimes that's what's forgotten. And that's why when we don't keep our eyes on Jesus, whether it's through a teaching like this, whether it's on the pulpit, whether it's through a book that's given, whatever, we begin to drift off into other places and we forget the most important part. And that's so valuable today because we've got every opinion under the sun, every single one. Whether it's listening to someone, whether it's reading someone, whether it's watching a video, it doesn't matter. We got every kind of opinion out there, and they are all different. But the one thing that the common element that's missing upon all of them is nobody is talking about keeping your eyes on Jesus. Okay, and if by chance Jesus is mentioned, it's usually in a very dooming and over the top way that is meant to terrify people. That's not what he did at all. He just laid it out. Here's the answer, and here's the result of not doing that. And that wasn't in a forceful way. This is the way provided. I am the way. No one gets to the Father but by me. That's it. There's no jumping up and down and screaming and sweat flying and spit flying. And no, that was just very clear. I paid the way. Therefore, to get there, you go through me. That's just really not that difficult. But as we look at the race, as we look at the run, if you will, the most important part is oftentimes forgotten. If you are signed up, if you are a person of athletic aspirations, and you sign up for a literal race, 5K, 10K, marathon, whatever, but you do absolutely nothing to prepare. You don't train, you don't exercise, you don't eat right, you don't stretch, you do nothing to prepare, nothing to strengthen your endurance. That run is not going to go well. It's not going to go well, and it's not going to last long. So here's my question as we're wrapping up our time together today. Why would we consider life any different? Why would we look at life any different? Keep your eyes on Jesus. Well, Pastor, doesn't that mean that he's our example? He's the one that we should be following? Absolutely. How is he our example? Well, here we read, he is the author, the perfecter, the creator of our faith. Well, wouldn't it make sense, the one that is saying, follow me, that we would know who that is? Matthew chapter 3, at the baptism of Jesus, we hear the voice of God that says, this is my son, in who I am well pleased. That was a confirmation of who he was. That ended any argument about that. John chapter 2, it says, at the beginning of the miracle of the turning the water into wine, Mary said to the crowd, do whatever he says to do. That was a profound statement. Okay, not a dogmatic finger pointing, you better or he's going to get you. No, listen to what he's saying. It'll change your life. That's all it meant. At the beginning of the book of Mark, We see his call to Peter, Andrew, James, and John. He says, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. The word make there was not force. And the word make was not, I'm going to drag you along and you're going. No, the word make there means teach. I will make you. I will create in you. I will show you how to be fishers of men. Follow me. What does that mean? Watch, learn, grow, so you can help others. In other words, stop, look, and listen. God bless you. I'll see you Monday.